Teaching learning session of IGNO. I am Dr. Amarnath Kumar and I am an academic counselor at Amar Jyoti Charitable Trust, one of the study centers of IGNO in Karkarduma. Today we are going to take up the subject BEGAE 182, which is all about communication. And this subject is one of your important papers uh, in your graduation course. Now, what will we study in this subject? We will be taking up blockwise. So first of all, I am taking BEGAE 182 block number 1, and block number 1 deals with basically the communication process, the communication techniques, and how communication is important in our life. All these things are dealt upon in block 1. In the subsequent weeks, we will be taking up other blocks. So I hope, my dear students, now you all are ready to study with me so that we have a good understanding of this block. Fine. So since I told you that this block is about communication, so first of all, let me talk. What do we understand by communication? See, the word communicate, generally in layman terms, the word communicate means to, talk to each other, or maybe how we pass on messages from one person to another. But we will have a definition of this word communication. And communication is the process of exchanging thoughts. So see, there are certain important things which are exchanged in the communication process. So what are the different components which are exchanged in the communication process? Number one is thoughts, what we think. Number two, information. Obviously, this is a very important thing because human communication has always been basically centered upon transfer and exchange of communication. So it's information. Thirdly, we are thinking individuals, so it will be emotions, feelings. So the exchange of thoughts, information, emotions, and feelings. And how do we do that? How do we communicate? Obviously, by speech. One is speech, second one is through writing, and obviously other means. And as thinking individuals, communication involves all our senses. By senses, I mean the sense organs. Anyway, see, this process of communication has been, it has been researched upon, and it has been well studied, and therefore, in the words of Allen, who has been a very important theorist, so how does he define this word? How does he define communication? So he says that it is the sum total of all the things. It is the totality of all the things which a person does or he wants to create. So all the things which a person does when he wants to create understanding in the mind of the other. इस definition को थोड़ा सा समझते हैं कि the meaning of this definition is whatever a person does when he wants to create an understanding in the mind of other person. This is communication. Whatever we are doing, maybe we are signaling, maybe we are writing, maybe we are using our speech, All these things, whatever we are doing to create understanding in the mind of the second person or the audience. And let me tell you, this process is not very simple as it is stated. It is a systematic process, and it is also a continuous process which involves telling, listening, and understanding. I'll tell you one thing. If I talk of sounds, then animals also make sounds. Animals or birds, they also make sounds. The dog barks, the crow crows, the cat meows. But then there are certain differences between human communication and the kind of sounds which are emanated by animals. And the difference lies in the way the process is. First of all, it doesn't have any meaning, and secondly, that is unsystematic. So therefore, human communication, in short, what I want to say, that it is a systematic process, well thought, well planned process, and it is a continuous process also, which involves all these three things: telling, listening, and understanding. Now, anyway, let us come to the process of communication. Process. I mean, we talk. I am communicating to you people. I am talking to you right now. I am talking to my students. You will ask me, sir, इसमें क्या process है? या दो आदमी बात करते हैं, what is the process? I'll tell you, in every human communication, there is a process. This is very important. You have to keep this in mind, because question will be asked to you from this part, that the communication process, it involves certain components. Components का मतलब elements, parts. What are those parts? Number one is the sender. Sender means the point or the person from where the message goes. But when I am sending the message, how am I sending? Either I am sending the message through writing, or maybe I am speaking, but whatever it is, the message is sent through a system of language. I have words, I have sentences, I have expressions. This process of forming the message is known as encoding. Encoding का मतलब क्या है? Encoding means whatever I want to communicate, that is created with the help of codes. Codes, written code, spoken code, anything. And the code contains the message. This is the third part. The code contains the message. But how is it going? How is the message going? Through a proper channel. See, I can explain this, or I will explain you this through, suppose, I send one particular in between. There's a channel. The channel may be a river, channel may be a land. Similarly, component is receiver. Receiver means the person to whom the message is being sent. Lekin this is not enough. The receiver has to decode the message. Now I'll tell you one thing. Suppose at this point of time I am speaking to you in English, and all of a sudden I begin to speak in Chinese. Obviously, you people won't be able to understand my message. The understanding, the interpretation of the message is known as decoding. Six components: sender, encoding, message, तीन हुए, channel, then the receiver, and finally the decoding. In the communication process, which may be represented in the form of a straight line, and I'll show you a slide where there will be a representation. So here in that representation you have but there are two important things which are not part of the communication process, but they affect the communication process. Once again, there are two elements which are not part of the communication process, but they affect the communication process. You have to remember this. And those two components are: number one, noise, 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 and second one is feedback. So noise, I have I'll take up noise separately, but at this point of time, noise is any disturbance, any obstruction, any you can say impediment, any barrier which will affect the communication process. और दूसरा, feedback. If A is speaking, doesn't give him a feedback, yes, no response, then how can the communication process continue? A teacher is teaching in the class and the students don't interact, the students don't reply, or maybe the students don't ask questions. How will the teaching process continue? So feedback is, in other words, it is the way by which the sender gets the quality of the message sent. कि भाई, whether the message was interpreted, whether the message was received properly, or it was understood properly, or what kind of quality the message had, all this. And let me tell you, feedback is very essential for the communication, for the success of the communication process. Kyunki if there is no feedback, then there cannot be modifications, there cannot be changes, there cannot, the quality of the communication can't be improved. Now, in the communication process, see, I was talking to you about noise, and noise most of the time comes from the physical environment. So suppose you are studying, and a marriage procession is going by near your house, and because of that you won't be able to concentrate properly. Or we often see that because of certain connectivity problems, we are not able to get the voice of the other person in the mobile or the telephone. Again, that is all because of the physical environment. लेकिन Apart from the physical environment, there are certain personal factors which also affect the communication process. Personal factor. Personal factor means factors which are associated with the sender. It may be with the receiver also. And most of these, they are psychological in nature, like anxiety, like fear, like ego clashes, attitude. There are some positive things also, like motivation, belief system of a person. Belief system, matlab, suppose you go to a place and there the culture is different. Your culture is different, their culture is different. Though you want to communicate some positive things to the other person, but because of the difference in culture, the other person won't get the communication properly. So this is all because of beliefs, work pressure, stress, etc. All these are known as the personal factors, and the personal factors also affect the communication process. Fine. So once again, if we summarize the representation of the summarize the communication process, then it is source, encoding, medium, receiver, decoding, which are affected by noise, and the quality of communication can be ascertained, can be evaluated through feedback. तो ये सब तो we have talked about what is communication and the process of communication. Have you ever thought कि how this communication, I mean, ठीक है, communication is happening between people, between a person and an audience, but what are the different types of communication? Well, if you think properly, if you think carefully, then you will find that there are various types of communication which take place in our society, in the world. सबसे पहले तो let us talk about the nature, very nature, the expression, I would say, very, the expression, कि how the communication comes out. So according to that, I mean, how the communication is done, it will be verbal or non-verbal. I'll explain this. But at this point of time, verbal means where you are using the language either in oral form or written form. What I am doing right now, it is mixture of verbal and non-verbal. I am speaking a language, and obviously a language which you can also understand. At the same time, in order to, convince you, in order to make my point clear, I am using certain non-verbal communication also. तो ये तो as per expression हो गया. अगर flow की बात करें कि where the communication process is happening, then it may be internal or it may be external. This example I can give you. Suppose you are working in an office, and in the office, the communication between you and your boss, or you and your subordinate, or you and a clerk, or you and a computer assistant, all this is internal. But suppose you are communicating to suppose a bank, your office, your organization is communicating to a bank, that will be external communication as per the direction. ये क्या क्या हुआ? Very nature and expression, number 1. Number 2, the flow, that is the setup. And number 3 is as per direction. Well, this is also very interesting. As per direction, In many places you will read that as per direction they generally write as vertical or lateral. Vertical or lateral. But here, according to the direction and for our understanding, I have tried to categorize into four types: upward, downward communication, horizontal, and diagonal. Diagonal का मतलब one corner to another corner. What is this? Upward communication का मतलब होता है from lower order to higher order. So suppose a supervisor is talking to the general manager, that is upward. Downward is from top management to lower management. Like, for example, the principal in a school is communicating to the teachers or maybe to the students. Horizontal communication is happening at 2 points in the same level. Like the marketing head of a company is communicating to the HR head. And diagonal communication, in diagonal communication, basically hierarchy is not maintained. It can happen from any point to other point. So you will find that perhaps the HR head is communicating to a junior officer. So these are the directions of communication. Similarly, I'll tell you what kind of communication you find in a classroom, suppose, or let us say in an office. And what is the kind of communication we generally do within our family, or maybe when we are with our friends. So one is very casual in nature, the other one is very orderly and systematic. So as per manner and relationship with the with the receiver and sender, communication is again classified into formal or informal. Formal means kind of, you can say, official, and informal is generally casual. And obviously, the medium which you choose for communication, according to that also, communication is divided into written or oral. So, my dear students, I hope you have now understood the types of communication, the directions, the nature of expression, or maybe as per the relationship, or as per the medium. There are various types of communications. Now we will be taking up that when we have face to face interactions, then how can we uh, classify those face to face interactions? When I say face to face interactions, that means when two people they communicate with each other. So the face to face interactions can be of two types. Number one is transactional. Transact, what is the meaning of transact? Transact is a process, you can say, where certain thing is given, and if it is given, then in return of that you get something. And when I refer to the word transact, that means it is orderly, it is systematic, and there is certain amount of value associated with it. So I'm trying to follow your block, basically. So the face-to-face interactions can be either transactional which is very much professional, business like, it is professional, it is formal. और दूसरा दूसरा है इंटरैक्शनल. इंटरैक्शनल इज बेसिकली कैजुअल, informal. And if I talk of the transactional interaction, तो यहां पर the whole focus of communication is to transfer the information. अच्छा, अगर if we talk about interactional, तो interactional में क्या होता है? As I told you, interactional is all about casual, like you are chatting with your friends, you are chatting with your family members, you are talking to a friend, you are talking to one of your relatives, or maybe you have gone to attend a marriage function, or वहाँ पर you meet someone, and there you have a kind of conversation about politics, about the world, about the TV shows or movies. So basically, interactional communication is to express social relations. लेकिन transactional, the function is to transfer information. Transactional, see, both are important. I can't say at this point of time we can't say as to which is important. Every kind of communication or interaction is important. But if I talk of transactional interaction, then as I told you that it is very value based. So since it is value based, a certain amount of value is associated with this transactional interaction. So therefore it serves certain functions. Please keep in mind the functions which transactional interaction does for us. क्या क्या करता है? What does transactional interaction do? You go to the railway station, you ask in the inquiry, you ask that when is this train coming, or whether this train is running on scheduled time or not. That is a transactional interaction. So one aspect is to make inquiry. Second, not only inquiry, in order to explain also, because when you ask the person sitting there in the railway inquiry, then obviously he will explain you certain things. And often, when you go to buy something, then you see that the shopkeeper tries to persuade you. So the very important function of transactional interaction is to make inquiry. Number one is to get help, or to explain something, or to convince people. The second function of transactional interaction would be a discussion. Likewise, an official meeting or interviews, that also comes under this, to give lectures, or maybe to demonstrate particular thing about an organization, about an industry, about an institution. So all these things, these are the various functions which the transactional interaction serves to do for us. But I'd make this point very clear to all of you, that we cannot say that this is the most important or that is less important. Both are important in their own areas. Anyway, the next thing which we are going to do will be characteristics and conventions of conversation. मतलब ये जो human conversation है, which takes place in the society, which takes place across different levels of this world, what are the basic features of this? Try to understand, please. The meaning is कि अगर human conversation हो रहा है, तो what are the various important parameters on which human conversation is taking place? कि ये सब होना ही है, then only human conversation will happen. and they are so very necessary and essential for a human successful human conversation. So those points we will go through. Number one among this is that whenever two people talk, whenever two groups talk, there is sharing of some common principles and opinions. See, we are talking to each other, isn't it? What are the principles we share? I have a very simple point that you people try to understand whatever I am communicating, and we are all talking about communication, and you are also there, so that okay, fine, let us come to understand what he is talking, and obviously this is part of our course. Let me tell you that in any communication or conversation of this world, sharing of common principles is a very important point, because अगर जब तक वो common ground will not be there, you cannot interpret each other's words. Acha, interpretation is one, and secondly, if the interpretation is not there, then you know what will happen. The flow of the conversation will not happen, and the conversation will halt, or it will terminate at some point. Secondly, you must have experienced the second point, that in any communication, though we all use language, we all use words, we all use expressions, we all use gestures, but a certain amount of clarity is needed in human communication. You go to suppose you listen to a cricket commentary, and let me tell you, when I was a child and I used to listen to cricket commentary, and at that time it used to be in English, and I was a kid. The बहुत बार I couldn't get anything, or I got very less. Well, it was because that the language was difficult for me to understand. So what I mean to say, that in any communication there should be clarity. Clarity means it should be clear. It shouldn't have technical terms. It shouldn't have jargons. It shouldn't have maxims. It shouldn't have very difficult words which I have to turn the dictionary. Let me tell you, you must have experienced, when you read newspapers, there will be certain terms related to law, court, law, judges. And you must have experienced that everything is not clear to you. Litigation, bona fide, sine die, habeas corpus, certain articles. So for a layman, it will be very difficult to interpret that. So they are maxims, they are jargons for that particular field. And because of that, the clarity is not up to the mark. Anyway, the sum total of this is, in any communication, a certain, an optimal level of clarity is required. Other characteristics, other conventions of communication are adjacency pairs. Adjacency pairs. Adjacency का मतलब क्या होता है? ये वर्ड कहां से बना है? Adjacent से. Adjacent. A pair, you can say, or lying side by side. Adjacent. Adjacency pairs means that when one speaker speaks something, it should be followed by the speech of the second speaker, so that they both are complementary to each other. You tell me, okay, sir, how are you? And I say, oh, well, I am fine. Or I say, what a great day it is. And you say, yeah, obviously it's a great day. It's very bright and sunny, and it's neither hot, neither cold. So what is happening? That there are two utterances. There are two speeches. And the first speech is followed immediately by a speech which is complementing that. ऐसे दो speeches को, utterances को, we refer to as adjacency pairs. The second important convention is opening and closing in a communication. See, opening and closing is very important. I mean, I'll tell you that if there is even a formal meeting, a meeting starts with an opening. Ki, okay, welcome to this meeting. Today we have come to discuss about this plan of our company, etc., etc. And similarly, when we close the meeting, then we say that okay, it was a great, meeting, and we discussed it. Was there was a lot of brainstorming, and we had so many ideas, and we will incorporate these in our discussion, this and that. Similarly, even in informal setup, you enter your house, and then your mom tells, yeah, your family members say, ki, okay, good, you have come. आ गए तुम, something like that. In any conversation, this is an important characteristic and convention, let me tell you, that, and especially in human conversation, the opening and closing is very important, and it is done with a lot of thought and care. Obviously, there are certain occasions when we don't think much because they have become part of our habit. But in formal meetings or conversations, it is well thought. Like, for example, if you suppose if you want to have a meeting in your organization or company, so you send out a notice, you send out an agenda, and similarly, when the meeting closes, then your word of thanks, things like that. Similarly, what will we talk? This is the topic development and selection. I'll tell you one thing, even informally, suppose you meet a stranger, there also you think first that what should I talk to him? So topic development and selection is yet another important uh, part and convention, I would say. The next is generally it happens in formal gatherings, in group discussions, or maybe where several people are sitting. So what you do there? You have certain etiquettes, how you take the turns, how you say, I beg your pardon, I have to make a point, or maybe you raise hands. Even in these virtual discussions in like Google Meet or Zoom, there also that those icons are there where you display that I want to raise a hand or something like that. So this is known as turn taking. And finally, repair. Repair is the process by which you rectify or correct your message, जो कि you feel that it has not been well received by the receiver. तो मुझे लगता है कि maybe the message which I wanted to communicate has not gone down well or properly to the receiver. And when you do that, then that is known as repair. So we have discussed about certain basic aspects of communication, certain basic things. We were focusing upon formal, informal communication. We were focusing upon human communication. And now I will introduce yet another important thing. What is that? Well, we all today are in a society, we are in a world where everything is driven by communication, information. We all are having our mobile phones. I mean, I always travel in a metro and I see that most of the people they are busy with their mobiles. What do I mean to say? I mean to say that technology has almost dominated our life today. I mean, let me tell you, whatever you do, you get up in the morning by an alarm clock or by the alarm clock of your mobile, and then you open your laptop, you open your computer. Most of the time, you are surrounded by gadgets. What I mean to say, that so vital is technology in our life today. that though this earth, is such a large place, but because of this emergence of, or not only emergence, I would say it is the proliferation of technology, the world has become a very small place. Technology has shrunk the world. There was at one point of time people used to dream of going a different country, but today it takes you no time. Anyway, we are referring, or I would say we are relating this to the world of communication. If you look into the world of communication, then you will find that in no time, news from one part of the world reaches to the other part. Shane Warne, the great cricketer who has died recently, he was in Thailand, I guess. And I mean, immediately we came to know that Shane Warne is no more. Similarly, whatever is happening in the world, it is a communication explosion. The whole world has been linked through, you can say in the form of wires or in the form of communication channels. It is interconnected. Between any 2 points on the earth, there are hundreds of ways by which those 2 points can be connected. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि just like in a small village, whatever used to happen in one house, the other people came to know about that. कि भाई, in that house, particular thing is being cooked, or sweets are being cooked. Similarly, the world has also become a small village where everything is known to other person in no time. इस कॉन्सेप्ट को, इस टर्म को मार्शल मैक्लूहन, who was a great theorist and philosopher, because so he coined a term. Coined का मतलब introduced a term called global village. The world becomes a village. The world today has become a small village. And when we refer to as global village, basically we are talking about how efficient, quick communication has become. Fine. And because of these efficient means of communication, there has been a great impact in the society. पहले क्या था? पहले the society used to be static. Static मतलब? Static means more or less things are in unchanging mode. And because of this static nature, the efficiency, the productivity, it was also limited. But now, because of the development in communication, the efficiency, the productivity, the overall development quotient, everything has multiplied. And let me tell you, today we are talking about telecommunication, we are talking about internet, we are talking about mobile technology. But before that, a very important mode of communication started maybe way back in 16th century in the world. You people must have known that printing came in the world somewhere around 16th century, or वैसे तो it came somewhere around 15th century, but by 16th century the printing press and the method of printing, it considerably increased, and printing led to what? Printing of books, printing of newspapers, printing of magazines. So printing led to a massive change in communication. Don't you think that in the morning you find hundreds of different kinds of newspapers? How is this happening? Because of printing. So what I mean to say, that the different forms of communication, which includes printing, they have led to a development and of this world, and also how the society is functioning. At one point of time, I'll tell you, people when they used to go to different countries or other country, it was such a situation that okay, fine, you write a letter or so, something like that. People used to speak in telephone once in a month or something like that. But today there is a constant exchange of ideas and information, and it is happening very fast. We are talking of diasporic societies. Diaspora का मतलब क्या होता है? Diaspora means, suppose people of one country, when they settle in a different country where they are small in number, so that kind of community is known as diaspora. So there are diasporic societies in US. There are almost large number of Indians even in England and other countries. So we have diaspora, Indian diaspora, which is based in UK, which is based in America, which is based in Canada, which is based in Australia. And even with the diasporic societies we have and other cultural groups, we are having constant exchange of ideas and messages. And not only this, but even today I'll tell you one more thing, that don't you think that the nature of messages have also changed? The communication has changed. SMS, WhatsApp, all these are different, you can say, ways of communication. They are actually not following that conventional type. Anyway, in this block, apart from all these things, there are two important things. One is the discussion about verbal and non-verbal communication, and the second one is communication barriers. Let us talk about a bit about verbal and non-verbal communication. Dekho, first try to understand, because many times we get confused. When I say verbal, verbal, so verbal is through words or through language. Verbal का मतलब ये नहीं होता है कि you are speaking, that is only verbal. No. Verbal means it is happening through words and language, and it can be oral as well as written. Both. Verbal communication is through words or language, and it can be through oral as well as written. Obviously, within verbal communication, you have two types then, oral and written. Oral is basically used in places where accuracy is not required, or kind of building up of social relationship, or maybe sorting out problems, or where quick decisions are required. Quick decision, बताओ भाई क्या करना है, बताओ. Many times when a leader is speaking to the audience, so in order to make a quick impact, there you take the help of oral communication. But let me tell you once again, oral communication is also verbal and written communication is also verbal. Don't forget this. Whereas written communication is used where you want to store the information and retrieve it. Retrieve का मतलब you can make use of that afterwards. Similarly, written communication is more accurate and precise because it is written. You can't change that. And thirdly, it also helps you in verification and authentication of that particular thing. So, for example, that we prepare an affidavit, we prepare a bond, or we take an exam. I mean, the student knows a lot, but then after all, we conduct an exam where he writes. Why? Because that is a proof of his knowledge. So we should understand clearly the difference between oral and written. Both are important, but oral is mostly used for fulfilling social needs, जहां पर precision, accuracy, correctness to a large extent is not required. Many times in sorting out problems, in taking quick decisions, in a gathering, or when you address a large number of people. Similarly, written communication is used when you want to store that, or you want to use that. Books. What are books? Books are examples of written communication. They can be used again and again. Secondly, written communication is used for reliability, accuracy, precision. और thirdly क्या है? For verification and authentication. I will just touch upon non-verbal communication today, and we will continue in the next class about non-verbal and barriers. But थोड़ा सा जाने से पहले non-verbal क्या होता है? Non-verbal is without words or language. Without words and language. मैंने sound नहीं बोला. Sound होता है, हो सकता है. Non-verbal is without words or language. It has sound, but it is very important part. Why? ये कॉम्प्लीमेंट करता है वर्बल को, इमोशन एक्सप्रेस करता है, और it influences the audience. And let me tell you, you can see that, isn't it? You can see. Agar your friend has smiled, you can see that. A teacher is teaching, the students say, do like this. Okay. Got it. Fine. I say goodbye. I say hello, how are you? So it is reliable, you can see it, it is efficient, and it helps us in, understanding the mental frame of the person. But the important thing is, let me tell you, that it actually adds to the verbal communication. It adds. What we are speaking is entirely language. But along with that speech, what I am doing, that is non-verbal. Anyway, we ended up here today. And we will continue next week. I hope you have understood the things. Next week, what we will do, we will take up the second block, but before that, we will finish certain portions like non-verbal. थोड़ा सा मैं और clarify करूँगा, and the barriers in communication, and then I'll touch upon the next block. So I hope you have understood the lecture. Thank you very much. So we are meeting next week.